Good evening. I will now call to order tonight's meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission. We have a quorum present, and the preservation ordinance empowers this body to safeguard our city's historic and cultural heritage and to oversee and administer our community's historic preservation program. The Commission is tasked with identifying and preserving historic, cultural, and architectural resources. During our monthly public meetings, we encourage public participation, afford due process through public hearings on proposed landmark designations, as well as reviewing and making determinations on applications for certificates of appropriateness. We also discuss ways to advance long-range planning goals beyond case review. We ask anyone who wishes to address the Commission to sign in and indicate the discussion item, case number, designation, or application to be addressed. And so with that, is there anyone here tonight to provide public comment for the landmark nomination for Lincolnwood Elementary School? All right. Seeing none. Oh, did you? We're going to do public comment before each item, so yeah. So now we will continue the public hearing, and do we ask for the district? No? Okay. Is anyone from District 65 present here to give your presentation for it? Oh, you're not giving a present?
Follow-up statement related to Lincolnwood.
I'm sorry, okay, for Lincolnwood?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so could you come up now and provide that? Thank. And then.
All right. So I'm Stacy Beardsley, Assistant Superintendent from District 65. And on behalf of District 65, I just want to thank you for the additional time to review the Lincolnwood property. We understand that the majority of the criteria for designation refer to the building structure and history. That being said, criteria 5 and 9 do have elements that may speak to the intersection of the history and the physical location of the building. As a result, we ask for additional time to further understand any deeds that may apply to the property under review. At this time, the district is comfortable with having the commission move forward with your deliberations. We do want to share that based upon the title search and deed reviews, we have reviewed one document that dates back to 1910 to 1913 that addressed the transfer of the northeast corner of the Lincolnwood property to the school district. Due to timing, it appears that this would have been connected to the construction of the first Lincolnwood school, which was demolished. Additionally, there's a second record from 1948 that transfers the 150 feet of the western edge of the property to the school district. It appears that due to a deed restriction, that no building or structural improvement could be located on the east 150 of the western side of the property between Grant and Colfax. This is the land adjacent to the forest and appears to preserve this land for playground, park, and recreation purposes. In closing, I also request that should either of the District 65 properties under consideration today become officially a landmark, that the report generated accurately convey one shared Evanston history inclusive of the experiences of different racial groups. The expansion of Evanston is not one story from one perspective. Please make sure that any report includes the complexities and tensions that were present during this time as these contribute to today's Evanston. District 65 represents a diverse group of families, and we're interested in making sure that the story of our schools is told in an inclusive and accurate manner.
Great. Thank you. For anyone that just came in, we're giving allowing for public comment for the Lincolnwood nomination. If you would like to, if not, that's okay. But we're just offering the opportunity. Can you come up to the podium?
I have more of a question because I think so. My comments go to both because of the intertwined history. Should we just say them now?
We're going to do Lincolnwood and Willard separately, so I guess you could give it now, and it could apply to both, and then, or you can speak before Willard as well.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Malia Gartzma, and I am a current Haven mom and former Kingsley mom. And I've submitted in writing some comments on both the Lincolnwood and Willard proposals, and I thank you for your consideration of those comments. I'm here tonight just to state a little bit more for the record on both the schools, more speak from my heart versus speaking from my legal training. And earlier today, I was sitting with what to say in person at this meeting beyond what I submitted in those written comments. And I ended up thinking about the historic places and landmarks that I had visited in the past and that have a heaviness to them. And two stand out. I have a vague memory from childhood of doing a walking tour in the historic area of an older East Coast city near DC, possibly Baltimore or Annapolis. And in my memory, our tour guide stopped us in front of a house to explain that it had been a safe house on the Underground Railroad, and that there was a story that the light in the third floor window was the ghost of a slave who had been killed along with others when they were detected and trapped in the hidden staircase of the house. The image is very vivid in my mind still, though I have not been able to confirm this ghost story with a current Google search. Many years later, in my early 20s, I traveled to Nuremberg in my first solo trip overseas to see the Nazi Party rally grounds. And what I recall of that site, which consists of only a small portion of the once massive structures, along with a commemorative museum, was the immense weight and solemnity that hung in the air, and that's almost impossible to put into words. You as a commission and we as a community have the charge of trying to figure out what to do with historic buildings that carry less heavy of a weight in some ways, but one that is much closer to home and in fact is right out our front doors and even in some cases within our own houses. And what I want us to all take from this history of our community and our schools that I have been researching and learning about is hope for the future. When you start looking closely at the history, you see that when these decisions were being made, there were individuals who saw other options. Those who did not want to go along with clearing Black individuals and families out of their homes and land and schools, and even those who thought there was a moral imperative not to. Also those who were simply concerned at the large investment of building new schools and pressures to induce growth, and who were worried that they and others like them could not afford to pay the costs. To put it another way, the votes to build these schools were not unanimous, and in that I found hope, and I hope you do too. The path not taken, that is what we have the opportunity to consider today. That is what I am hoping this commission holds in its hands and weighs in its decision-making. There's one other difference between the Underground Railroad Safe House and the Nazi Party rally grounds that I want to note. Neither was a property currently held by a public entity trying to fulfill a current public purpose. Keeping those sites intact for posterity did not carry with it what we are weighing here today. Whether to preserve a building, even if doing so might impede achieving an important public good today, one that might help rectify the wrongs of the past. So I also ask, whatever we decide to do to commemorate these buildings, we do not do so in a way that could take us backwards and not forwards. Thank you. I also wanted to provide a photo that I've been told is quite a moving one. This is a photo of 3 Black children standing in what would become McCormick Boulevard. And on their, I guess, the right of the picture are several frame houses. These are homes that were cleared to build the Haven and Kingsley schools. And these ostensibly are children who lived in those properties or nearby. So I don't know if I should hand this to somebody, but if you haven't seen this photo, it's worth taking a look.
All right, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll conclude public comment. And Ms. Vaughn, do you want to come and present anything in response to what was presented tonight? Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Ms. Vaughn or the District 65 in regards to this new information that we received? No? Okay. All right. All right, well, so then we can close the record, right? And then, okay, so then with that, do I need a motion for the closing? Okay, so is there a motion to close the public hearing so that we can enter into deliberation. All right, is there a second? Seconded, and all in favor? Aye, okay, so that's unanimous. So now we can move into deliberation of this proposed nomination. My notes show that Ms. Vaughn is requesting it be designated a landmark for almost, I think, every criteria except for one. Is that correct? Or except for two? Okay. And so there's the firm Armstrong First in Tilton, which is the architectural firm. And then she also was presenting on its relations to Perkins. Does anyone have any comments on the relation to any architectural firm or, I mean.
Sorry, what are the two that are not proposed? It's in here, I'm sure, but the two criteria that it's all but which two?
I think it's everything except for one and. Do you have? The archaeology and. Oh, it's 1 and 7.
Thanks.
So the current building is not designed by Perkins. It's because that Perkins designed the former school that was on the location, and then it's also located next to the woods that are named after Perkins. But that's not really for architectural purposes. That's more for his involvement with the park district. So I don't, personally, I don't see any reason to include Perkins because that was a former school, and what we're discussing right now is the existing school. So I would do Armstrong First in Tilton as the architectural reason, but not for Perkins because we don't have any existing Perkins building on site. Do you all think that's okay or? Okay. All right. So then there's also do you think it meets the criteria for its architectural type, style, or design? And does it have any distinguishing innovation, rarity, uniqueness, or overall quality of design? That's standard 3.
I think that it clearly exemplifies a Georgian revival style, but not in a particularly unique way. In kind of, this is just my opinion, in the most average kind of mid-century version of that style. It looks like a lot of mediocre houses of that era that were attempting to do the Georgian style. And so for that reason, while it does exemplify the style, or at least the interpretation of that style in that era, I don't think that it's worthy of landmark status for that reason.
Well, from the presentation, do we have examples of his other church architecture? Because I think that the church architecture is pretty exemplary in comparison to the school. I think those would be definitely landmark worthy for their architectural style. But when you compare it to the school, I'm not sure that it's at the same level, or in comparison.
It hits all the humdrum components that I don't think are special.
So if, I mean, if we're not, so then it becomes, so because of Armstrong, First, and Tilton and all the work they produced, do you think it's worthy of being a landmark as an example of that firm, which I guess is standard 2? If we're kind of leaning towards 3 not applying based on the style, or 4.
How do you want to handle this? Is this something that we should take for each of those items, a straw poll of opinions?
Can you speak into that?
No, I was just asking, since we're going through these items one by one, and seem to be, as commissioners, commenting on them, I'm wondering if for each one of these items we should take, before we do an actual vote,
Right.
if we should take a straw poll for each of those items, because it also seems to me, I think I agree with John, I don't think it meets enough of the criteria, including, the church work done by the Tilton firm.
Sure, I mean, we could definitely do a straw poll for, do you have any?
Yeah, we can do a straw poll, but I'd first like to just have a discussion, just would like to hear what people say, more comments before we jump
Okay.
to straw poll. That's my
Like,
thought, but I'm fine with
like
doing
broadly,
that.
if you went
Yeah, more
one by
broadly,
one and you
if-
generally,
So do you
Give
have,
your-
do you have any other broad comments to share now, or do you want to hear from other?
No, I just wanted to hear, I'd love to hear how, people's perspective before I'm still sort of forming my own. That's
Okay.
where I'm at.
So Josh, do you want to start with Josh and just go down the line and just say broadly what we think of the overall nomination?
As one of the few non-architects, probably not the best person to start with. So I'll pass.
He says, as we can go the other way if you.
I'm happy to jump in. So first of all, I thought that the presentation was very complete and helped me understand why, other than what's going on with District 65, this would be an appropriate building to landmark. I mean, I think it's good for us to think about how often we do this. That was the first question that I asked Kate, and I think it was the 80s was the last time that.
the last time there was any kind of like bulk of designations was in the 80s. The last time the city designated a landmark, I think, was in 2015. Probably rings a bell to me. Maybe 2017.
Okay.
2018. It was Foster School. Was the last one.
But 2018 was for cultural reasons. But yeah, it was the last.
Okay, so 7 years, because it certainly hadn't in my tenure happened. So it's not something that we take lightly. I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues think. My take, and this hasn't changed even with the presentation, was that it's not a particularly remarkable building, with my architect hat on. And so I was prepared to, especially considering how often we landmark buildings, but I think we have to think about why we landmark buildings. And if it's purely based on the architectural merit, I don't think it warrants that. So I think you've heard that before. What I found interesting about the presentation was the innovative urban planning that was involved with it, the significance of an important local architect to the development of the site, if not the building, and as the son and brother of two teachers, the author being influenced that influenced. I'm going to get this wrong. Beverly Cleary. Ms. Perkins, that's not nothing. So I'm still forming my opinion, but I'm coming in thinking that as a building, it's not a unique enough contribution to warrant being a landmark. But I think for me, I'm interested in hearing more what we think about the other criteria for landmark, because it's a collective saying this is important, so leave this alone and take care of it. We all have those things in our lives. The house I grew up in, probably for a lot of us, not all of us, the house that we grew up in means a lot, and we would like to see that preserved and do its job for generations. But this is like the whole community's got to agree. And so I'm not prepared to say whether I'm going to vote for or against, but I'd like to direct the conversation to the non-architectural criteria.
Sorry for jumping straight into the architecture, but I think that I generally agree that I don't think it's worth landmarking for its architectural style or, but I do think this is a pretty unique setting and school for the city. If you think about most of the other schools, they do not have a forest forest preserve next door, large lot size. Like you said, the urban design was kind of an interesting history to hear about how they assembled parcels over time to build this school. There's definitely a lot of interesting history with with teachers and other curriculum that happened at the school, but I don't necessarily think this is the best work of Armstrong, First, and Tilton. But I think it is worth exploring the other criteria more.
Well, I agree with you. That's why I think we should go through the criteria one at a time just to structure this discussion. In a general sense, I concur with the other architects on the commission. I think it's a totally undistinguished and unremarkable example of Georgian revival. And I think in terms of its architectural merit, it certainly does not warrant being made a landmark. It interests me, if I remember your presentation correctly, that ties were made to Perkins and the Perkins family, and I found it very interesting that Cade actually forwarded to us sections of Larry Perkins' oral biography from the Art Institute, where he noted how much his father, Dwight Perkins, hated the Georgian Revival building that had been put up on the site where his structure was torn down. So I find the connection to Perkins and Perkins family, notwithstanding the murals over the mantelpiece by Lucy Perkins, not to be cogent or persuasive enough to convince me that it should be that the existing structure should be landmarked.
I agree with what people have said about the architecture being not maybe rising to the level of landmarking in and of itself. But I do think it's unfortunate that your presentation came a month before, because I think it was very, very good, comprehensive, gave a lot of color to the property. And I think I agree that that's what we should focus on when we're considering landmarking, because I think, like people have said, that's the significant piece of this. And there is criteria to account for those other things. We're not just supposed to look at how significant the architectural elements are.
Well, I agree with just about everything that everyone has said so far. And I'm not an architect, but I don't find the building moving or one that I would drive by and say, wow, there's a historic building. I don't get that feeling at all. And as far as the cultural aspect goes, there's a lot of culture with every building in Evanston practically, and a lot more than this one. So I don't find, other than being adjacent to Perkins Woods, I don't find anything really compelling or moving that would make me want to accept this nomination. But then I'm still willing to listen to what other people have to say.
So I concur with all the previous commissioner statements, and I would add to the comments about associating a landmark status based on its association with Perkins is a little bit akin to when a developer like tears down a mountain or something like that and builds a subdivision and names it for the thing that they desecrated. So, but I want to add one point, which is relating to the non-architectural aspects of it, which is its site, its location in relation to the forest. And I'm not convinced that it was urban planning. It may just have been serendipity. It may have been for financial reasons. It may have been for darker racial segregation reasons. We don't know. But the forest and the school, or at least some version of this school, have coexisted side by side for about 100 years now. And I think that is a special relationship. I think it's valuable. I think it's relevant to what we value in Evanston now in terms of children having an appreciation for nature and wildlife. And on that reason alone, I'm going to opt for landmark status. I full know that when we're bestowing that status based not on the building itself, that may create some strange conditions for the school district and the city council down the road. We can't determine, we won't have a say on whether or not they want to sell it. But for the most part, I just have to put blinders on and not worry about where this is going to go after us, and go with what I think is worthy of a landmark.
All right.
Could you, I think Stuart's made a suggestion that I'd like to second. I think it would be a good idea to go through the criteria just so that everyone can hear them.
We just have one more person, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Josh.
No worries. So thanks for
Best for last.
everyone else having a chance to speak. Since I wasn't here for the meeting before, it sort of some of the intensity for of the presentation clearly is lost on me. But what's not lost on me, I think, is what some of my fellow commissioners said about like the space that this takes up in our neighborhood. I keep on going back to number 10 and like the way that this neighborhood is built around this, and its exemplification of values. Evanston is, neighborhood schools are a part of who we are. We're working to rectify that right now with the creation of Foster School. So that sort of looms large in how I'm going to approach this.
So I'm really torn on this one, but last month we were looking at a not stellar building, but because of the architect, we were like, we spent 2 months on it. So is it the architecture? Is it the urban setting? Is it the history of the building? I don't know the answer, but I think we have to look at it all. And although it's not a stellar example of Georgian, if this was a house and someone came in front of us and wanted to landmark it, we'd probably say yes. I don't know. But but it's a nice example of Georgian. It's not the best out there. It's a great example of how to lay out a school with a lot of land around it, and there is some history to it. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I would still like to go back to our suggestion, which is that we go through the criteria one by one, that the commissioners determine how many of them the building and its history and its historical associations and the uniqueness of its site, how many of the criteria it meets. And then, if it meets more or less of the criteria, I think then we have an indication of whether this is a structure we should be landmarking or not.
All right, so do you want to go down the list? We'll start with criteria 1. Its location as a site of significant historic or prehistoric event or activity which may or may not have taken place within or involve the use of any existing improvements on the property. Any comments on that criteria?
I'm sorry.
Could you just repeat the last?
Or can you put the
Well,
list up
everybody
on-
seems to think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we,
Kate, can you put the list up? Because none of us have it in front of us, so.
Yeah,
they're printed out, but
yeah, I don't think I have a copy either. Well, you're going to read them. With respect to that first criteria, I think the significance of the site is its adjacency to Perkins Wood.
I'm using his, thank you.
okay, right,
I still think you ought to take a straw poll,
for each
yay or
criteria.
nay on each criteria, and see where we're at, because obviously there isn't uniform agreement as to whether the building should be landmarked or not.
That's fair. Do you want to provide anything?
Just wondering if we have a unanimous on the straw poll, that we just move on to the next one rather than continue to discuss the same points I think we've already hit,
Sure.
if everyone else
Do
agrees.
you-
Okay.
Fine with that?
Didn't seem unanimous to me when people were commenting.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
Sorry, I just said it didn't seem unanimous to me when people were commenting.
I don't think it is.
Sure, so do you think criteria 1 applies for, and we'll just quickly just go down, and you can say yes or no.
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 Oh, yes.
I'm a yes, I guess.
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay,
That's
so that,
That's a no.
it's a no.
Are you keeping it that way?
Okay. Okay, well, so now we can move on to 2. I can read it if you can't read the screen. Criteria 2 is its identification with a person or persons who significantly contributed to the historic, cultural, architectural, archaeological, or related aspect of the development of the city, state, Midwest region, or the United States. And I think when it was presented, that was the firm Armstrong First in Tilton, who had relations to Marshall and Fox and Perkins. So,
No.
okay.
Yes.
No.
I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
All right. Those criteria 3 then,
So where did that come out?
that was most, no.
So my point was that if we weren't unanimous on our straw poll of each one, then we would have further discussion on it at that point, right now.
Oh, you want to do
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Instead of
If
doing it?
everyone else,
Because I was just quickly going to go through but we can do it now, after each one.
Oh.
if
Well,
there
I think
is.
there's a usefulness in going through all of those just to see, because the reason the criteria are established and written out is to have a way to determine whether or not a building that's being proposed for landmarks nomination in fact meets those criteria. And I would argue, independent of any discussion of these items, that if the commissioners, for the most part, feel that the building meets those criteria, then we should be voting to landmark it. If the commissioners feel that it doesn't meet enough of the criteria, then we should not be voting to landmark.
I think John's point, I think we all agree with that 100%. I think what John is saying is that once it gets read out and we've thought about our answer, that's probably the best time to talk about it.
That's true. So do you want, I kind of agree with you that if it's not like 8-0 yes or 8-0 no, then I think we should. So do you have does anyone have to say anything about this in relationship to any person, firm?
Yeah, so I was, I think, one of the few people that voted yes, and not because of the firm, but I think the development of the site and the importance of Perkins, on the development of the site, and to go to Lisa's point about the impact of an important architect. Perkins is a significant architect, family of architects. So for me, the Perkins family role in the development of the site was enough to say yes.
Yeah, I also similarly thought the same way, but also I just wanted to say, I don't, I'm fine with the straw poll, but I think the way I understand designation is it doesn't have to meet the majority of these, right? I mean, it could even meet one of them. Like if I felt like it met one of them and it was significant, I can vote yes, even if everyone else thinks. Right. So I'm not sure, we could continue this, but we don't need to get the majority of commissioners to agree on some critical mass of these in order to vote it as a landmark. That's not how that process works.
I agree with that, but it will make the wording of our purpose for that a little bit trickier if we're not in at least some agreement on the points.
I agree.
You're not making a decision on whether to recommend nomination now or not. Essentially what you're doing is you're trying to come to some consensus about which of the criteria, if any, might possibly even merit further exploration, and then that gets included in the report. The only time that you could, as a commission right now, say you wanted to end the process, that was very, like there was agreement, and it was like, no, it's very clear it doesn't. Otherwise, you could review the report, which could have more salient arguments for or against. That's what happened with Willard too. You said, let's explore some. We did. There were some that didn't shake out the same way maybe that we initially thought. So you don't have to decide right now. You could just say, hey, I think criterion 9, maybe there's agreement that that's worth exploring as a group, and then you can do the research, write the report, make some kind of formal, cogent argument for it, and then you vote on that at a later time, yes or no, if that makes sense.
One question about the building. Was the building built on the footprint of the building that was torn down? It was
No.
moved to a different location. Therefore, there would be some relevance in terms of the siting of this building.
The old school, my understanding was that the soil was not the best. And so there was some settling happening, right? And so then I think there was a big foundation built, big basement built underneath the school, the current school. So
At the same footprint of the old school? It was
No,
located
they're
in a different
they're
location?
separate. They actually coexisted for a very short period of time. So the current school is centered on a very large parcel. The original school, which is, I think, 1914, is in that northeast corner.
Yeah.
sorry, where the basketball court is? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion, and it seems to me that designation of landmark is that it is either that it is an architectural and or historical landmark. I think we have sort of, as commissioners, concurred that this is not an architectural landmark, so that I think the focus should be on asking the question, is there enough historical importance and history associated with the school and the people involved with the school for it to be considered a historical landmark? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be, like for Willard, we have a bunch of architectural features that we're listing as reason for landmark designation. With this, it's more for a cultural, historic purpose. So I think that's why we're going through this, just to try to see if any of these criteria we think meet it, or upon further exploration could meet that cultural designation.
And the siting of Willard was a lot more significant than this building, I believe, in my feeling, in terms of.
All right, so are we continuing with going down line by, so it was what, 2 to 5 on criteria 2, so 3, criteria 3 is its exemplification of an architectural type, style, or design distinguished by innovation, rarity, uniqueness, or overall quality of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship.
No.
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 All right, so that's our first unanimous. Criteria 4, its identification as the work of an architect, designer, engineer, or builder whose individual work is significant in the history or development of the city, the state, the Midwest region, or the United States.
No.
Is the architect, just to clarify, the same one with those church windows? I'll say yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
All right, well, that's 3 to 4. So, I mean, the people who said yes, was it because of the architect, the designer, engineer, planner?
The architect.
For the architect? Okay. And same for you, the architect? All right.
Would those people agree that this is not the best example of the work of that firm,
Yes.
or even a good example of the work of that firm?
Not the best.
Okay. So, Amanda, do you have anything else to say for?
No, I mean, that was the same. It was sort of the church association with the architects, and it's not the best example, but it is an example.
Okay. Me personally, I think I would like to know more about the development of the site over time, and I think that was pretty significant for the neighborhood. So, I mean, I think upon further exploration, we'll find out yes or no, but I think it should be looked into. So, next,
You're on to number 5.
yes, now we're going on to number 5. Its exemplification of important planning and urban design techniques distinguished by innovation, rarity, uniqueness, or overall quality of design or detail.
Right now, I'm a no, but I'm certainly open to any new information that can come across on that topic.
Just wondering where the Perkins Forest Preserve comes into this. Like, John, if you, I know you said you thought that was a special piece. What criteria does that fall under for you?
For me, that's number 9.
Innovations in planning.
If
Yeah,
it-
that, sorry.
My feeling, based on what we've heard so far, is that they kind of happened by accident.
I see.
I don't.
Not
We haven't seen
intentional.
any strong evidence that it was really intended. So for that reason, I see it in 9 and not number 5.
Okay.
Just to go back to the facts, I could be wrong, but I think Perkins, it wasn't just named after him. I think, and I don't know if we can ask for more advice, but it seems like he was integral in the making that a forest preserve. So creating that preserve of nature next to the school, it seems like it was more intentional.
I'll say yes.
Stuart,
Do you want to read the criteria again? Because I thought it was about innovation and planning. And
sure,
I don't-
I'll read it.
I think putting a school next to a forest preserve is a wonderful. I think putting a school next to a forest preserve is a wonderful thing to do. I don't think it's an innovation in planning, nor was it at that time.
I'll read it again for you. It's the exemplification of important planning and urban design techniques designed by innovation, rarity, uniqueness, or overall quality of design or detail.
Again, I would,
No.
I'm sorry, can I jump in? Sorry,
Sure.
sorry. I would say it's very rare and it's very unique.
Right. I mean, I think, so I'm a yes. Are you? Oh, no, it's okay. It's,
Yes.
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 we're kind of doing both roll call and talking at the same time, but I do agree that it is kind of a unique setting for a school in the city. But that's why I was asking for further exploration, because I don't know who the person is that was behind it or
Clearly Perkins was, not the Tilden firm.
Sure, but I mean, if we're going to be listing it for urban planning purposes, was there, some master plan done? That's what I would like to know is, were there ulterior motives, like John, like you said, like to keep, like, were there racial covenants put on houses around the school district? Was it an attempt? That's what I would like to know, because if there was, then that's probably significant. If not, then maybe not. But
I thought I might have read in a piece that Kate added that there was a previous owner to the Perkins Woods site, and so I wasn't clear whether the land was owned by the Perkins family and donated or became Perkins Woods, but it I think that I haven't seen anything that would indicate that that large amount of open space was preserved in any way for a forest preserve in a school. It seems more serendipitous that there was this open space that allowed this school to be built there, and not that the school was particularly, that the place was prepared in advance for this school. I think there was an opportunity, and not like some kind of a long-range plan of some really smart guys sitting around figuring it out. But I don't know.
okay, well, that one's the closest, is 4-4. So now, criteria 6. Its association with important cultural or social aspects or events in the history of the city, the state, the Midwest region, or the United States.
No.
Was there? No. I was going to say, was there any history of a relationship between the forest preserve and the school? Like the school had a special curriculum developed, and the kids from that school went on to be, pursue careers in forestry or ecology or something. I have never had that feeling that that relationship existed. So, but if it does, that would be great. But I think that's been very, very, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. I think that there's hasn't been enough association to make a connection.
Okay.
No, but I'd love to hear others' thoughts.
No.
I tend to agree with you, Charles, that if there was more information showing a tie, it would be significant, but right now, at face value, I would be a no.
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 Okay. So, what was that, 6? 7. 7 is its location as a site of an important archaeological resource.
No.
You can pass if you want to think about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
No.
I would say no.
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 Charles, do you have any more thoughts, or do you?
You know, as somebody interested in anthropology and all that stuff, I think because it was built on a Perkins site, is that connection enough archaeologically? No. I don't
No.
think so, no.
Okay. All right. Criteria 8, its representation of an historic, cultural, architectural, archaeological, or related theme expressed through distinctive areas, properties, structures, sites, or objects that may or may not be contiguous. This is mostly for districts or non-contiguous sites.
So more like a thematic.
like a thematic district. So, because this is an individual site, I guess we can still go down the list, but
No.
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 Okay. Criteria 9, its unique location or distinctive physical appearance or presence representing an established and familiar visual feature of a neighborhood, community, or the city.
Yes.
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 Stuart.
I'm going to say no, but I'm not sure what the answer to that would be in terms of its relation to the neighborhood. It was built in the 1950s, so I would think that a yes answer for me to that question would be a little tenuous.
All right. Yes.
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 So that one is what? 7-1. All right. And the final criteria is its exemplification of a pattern of neighborhood development or settlement significant to the cultural history or traditions of the city, whose components may lack individual distinction.
No.
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 This is also a district.
No.
This one, this one would apply for a district,
Yeah.
not for an individual.
Correct.
So I would say no.
Your turn.
Yeah, no. Thanks, boss. Thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, clearly not a district, but I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes.
All right.
Can you guys talk about why?
I mean, the idea of the placement of the school with all of the land around it, it's a unique school in Evanston. It's like the passion that Lincolnwood parents and students talk about that space does feel distinctive and special to me.
I think that I don't disagree with that. I wouldn't put that under criteria number 10. I find that my interpretation of number 10 is it's talking about the actual neighborhood development and not this individual school and property. Or I just don't think that one really informed the other. I think that it got developed the way most schools have been developed in the United States, where there was a combination of houses and schools being built almost simultaneously.
So, I mean, it sounds like there's kind of like a different, because I know that you like 9, and then you all like 9 and 10, I think. So it's just they kind of speak to the same thing. I guess 9 is for its location and distinctive physical appearance, and 10 is for its example of overall development. Do you want to?
Yeah, I would just, at least my understanding of 10 has always been, for example, some of the districts are nominated under number 10 because they have a very common and harmonious period of significance in which they were built. So, and that's easy to establish. So the entire neighborhood was developed, predominantly between 1890 and 1910s, and there are exemplifications of those types of houses that were being built there, and they have significant integrity. So I would say this one probably doesn't apply to an individual, unless that individual property had multiple structures on it or something, and then you could say that individually they don't have distinction, but when you take all those individual structures and parts and put them together, they do.
So you're like saying if it was like a campus of school buildings,
That would make sense as well.
That over time, the campus was developed to.
That's a good example.
So like the high school that was a Perkins building that was then later developed by a later iteration of the Perkins firm would kind of like be a development over time, right? But
Or like Northwestern's campus
Right.
prior to the
Right.
large-scale subdivision is another really good example where there might be a heightened level of distinction and significance on that campus when all those buildings were taken as a whole. Even though it's also, individual buildings, certainly in that example would also be distinctive.
Yeah, can I add some history to all of this as someone who's actually written about and done research on Perkins? I concur that a lot of the uniqueness of the school is its adjacency to Perkins Wood. I'm not sure how that came about, whether it was a choice that Perkins made or whether it was the school board that selected the site. But here, Perkins functioned for a number of years as the chief architect for the city of Chicago for all of the public schools. Prior to Perkins' tenure, schools did not have playgrounds. They did not have open adjacent space accessible to students. There were a lot of other things. They didn't have, all the bathrooms were in the basement. Schools didn't have auditoriums for school use or public use. The number of things that we take for granted that he brought to the design of schools is staggering. But one of the important things is the existence and use of adjacent open space. And I think that it sounds like, in terms of the way people have voted and the comments, that the uniqueness of the school is in part its site and its adjacency to Perkins Woods.
And then just one thing as a clarifying point, because I agree with you. I think it's also important to remember that the original school that was designed by Perkins was not adjacent to what is today Perkins Woods.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That they were separated by, I think, 2 streets and a city park at the time. So I do understand what you're saying. I'm not saying not to explore it. I think it might be valuable. But in terms of those advancements in like pedagogical approaches to school, which I think are really valuable, there's some of that in the Willard nomination. I don't know if that's in the 1950s as much as that is in like the 19-teens, 1920s.
So you're saying there's no historical significance to the adjacency because it wasn't original.
I'm just pointing out that the original school designed by Perkins was not adjacent to what is today Perkins Woods.
Didn't know that. Okay, thanks.
Could I ask a little bit more about that? Because I think that's very significant. because that makes that open space much more intentional. If prior to that school being built sometime, there were these streets, there was this separation between the school grounds and Perkins Woods. Subsequently, there was all that was taken out, and there was a clear vision, a clear, connection to the woods. I find that to be much more intentional and much more significant, and I think that's a very valuable piece of information to me.
That's the kind of thing that we could try to explore further and try to get some more information on how that occurred and why.
Yeah, I mean, that cost a lot of money. It brought about a kind of a major change to the neighborhood, because now you've got this multi-block circle that you have to go around to get from point A to point B. I find that to be not just intentional, but that was very much invested in.
It's actually, if you think about that larger neighborhood, there's across the street is Three Crowns, which was, I guess a Swedish, what was its name before that?
Retirement Association.
Yeah, I have a
And
kind,
so that
sorry.
kind of was like a campus of buildings. So that was kind of like a large block of institutional use, and then you mirror it and you have one school and a lot of open space. So it's kind of an interesting, yes.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say and ask is that along with land use and zoning, landmarking is one of the ways in which we, as a city, can control the development of a site, a property, or a building. Is there any way in which we can landmark the property and not the building?
Well, I think that's what we're leaning towards, is that we're saying that more of the landscape or the siting of the open space is what's significant. My understanding from commissioners, right?
Yeah, just what the preservation ordinance does is it manages the physical characteristics of a property to ensure that it continues or can continue to communicate its past and these associations you're talking about. So the very first task would be, what physical components on this site illustrate or communicate these associations in that past, and then you're deciding how those need to be actively managed or not. If there are no physical components that illustrate that past, it becomes pretty symbolic. I would say that then what you're running into is the criterion for integrity is probably poor, that the site has a significant history, it has significant associations, but it's unable to communicate that effectively through alterations that happen to the site over time. So it becomes complicated. We can explore these things, we can explore integrity, we can try to come to some, but certainly, I mean, your point, Stuart, is really well taken, is how do you manage this? Let's assume it's designated. How do you manage it in the future? That's something the report should try to spell out and look at what the specific guidelines are or not. Is it important that that school building is there? Would it be able to communicate its past if it was not there? Maybe it could, maybe it couldn't, but those are certainly questions that we'd have to deal with.
I think what we want to propose is that its landmark status is based on there being a public school on that site. Doesn't have to be the one that's there right now.
And also that we can't regulate use. So is it the physical building and that it can communicate its past as a school, whether or not it is?
But I think that what
is
we're
possible.
talking about is, like we discussed with another school, Willard, the massing of the school is kind of in scale with the rest of the neighborhood. And it's an institutional use for public use that has a compatible, massing with the rest of the context of the neighborhood. So it's like a large institutional public use building that's within keeping of the context.
How do we do that as a commission? Because I would agree with John that the site should remain in the public domain and that it should have some institutional or civic use as opposed to being 4 or 5 little suburban houses that somebody puts up.
I don't think this body's role, the preservation ordinance, can't regulate that
No.
in any way. You can't regulate the transfer of property. You can't regulate how properties are used. The whole regulatory framework in a scenario where this would be owned by a private entity is trying to manage the physical components that communicate that past. So maybe it is that the physical presence of the school, as undistinguished as it might be, is important to communicating that history and the association that even if it's not a school, that it once was a school, and once was an institutional building, and that maybe that's important. You get into further details about maybe it doesn't matter that the windows are changed then, or maybe it doesn't matter that certain things happen in terms of it being altered as long as the scale and the mass of it is there. But
Well, it seems to me that if you designate the building, then you engage the criteria for alteration, and that somehow, we're stuck with the building.
But I think that's when we get to the report that we can delineate what the key features are. And like we've come up with for Willard, there's a design guideline. I think, is that what you're, talking about, was potential alteration of the building and how it could convey its
you're
history?
just trying to create clarity in what physical components
Right.
matter
Right.
and should be actively managed versus ones that inherently aren't important.
Well, how would the designation relate to issues of adaptive reuse?
So all of that could be included in the guidelines. I mean, very broadly, an adaptive use is kind of a central tenet of this commission and of preservation widely. So I think regardless of how it's used, because we can't regulate that anyway, I think that's something we would approve.
That's normally what we're interested in one of these mixed scenarios, but I'm looking for the opposite of that here. I want to control the use. When there's a change of zoning on a site, is the Preservation Commission asked for a recommendation on any particular site?
If it was a landmark, the commission would be given the opportunity to provide a recommendation on the zoning if it can demonstrate that it affects the designation in some way.
Well, I think that's our route to having some say in the use of this property.
And I do, just to further just muddy everything, I believe it's currently zoned open space, which allows for the school, and I don't know what the future zoning might be. I think in the land use map, it was probably zoned residential, if I recall correctly. I think all the schools, many of the schools right now are zoned residential too, but.
But when we write the designation for the building, we have commented, I think sufficiently, that the building itself is not all that exciting, but the siding and the grounds contribute to the historic value of the building. When it's written, will the description be will there be a strong connection to the grounds with the building, the site, so the entire property, right, would be part of the significance. I think that's an important element. If we were talking about the space around the building, which is very important, so that would be included in its entirety, right?
That's absolutely something that's important to include. I would say the spatial relationships, based on what I'm hearing, are probably more important than they are in other designations. So I think I would agree
So-
with you.
One thing that we've learned, and other folks researching the deeds and the history of this property, is that there is an easement on the west end of it, so that the component of it that's adjacent to the woods can never be built on. Do I have that correct, Cade?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay, so that does afford some protection to the woods, because that's sort of like part of what we are valuing here. I just want to state for the record that, and this is a weird situation, but I want to state for the record that I have no interest in landmarking this property to see it become not a school and the building has to stay and it's turned into condos or something like that. I just, that would defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to get done here.
Okay. Any other comments from this side? So we have to decide if we're moving forward and what criteria. I mean, right now it's,
Yeah, I mean, based on what I'm hearing, it's, exploring 5 and 9.
right.
And then as a commission, we just need to, or you need to come to agreement on whether you want to proceed to preparing the report or not at this point, under those criteria.
Kate, could you talk a little bit about, just briefly, the process? You mentioned proceeding with the report. What are the steps?
So all of what I just heard is like I'm absorbing all of that. So it's nice to know that we've narrowed down the criteria to potentially 2, even though there's not unanimous agreement on either of those. We have 70 days to write, review, potentially adopt or not that report. So in the meantime, it would be trying to find additional information on some of those points, write a narrative about how the property does or doesn't meet those criteria, and then bringing it back in front of you.
So that was my question, because the agenda has an action item about nomination. So I wanted to be real clear about what we're doing here, because I don't think we all are. We're not voting tonight
No, we're,
to make this or not make this a landmark. We're deciding how to proceed with the report, which will then
right.
be voted on by this body.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to do it. You can vote.
Yeah, right,
At any
okay,
time,
yeah.
you can say, this has no merit, we don't want to proceed. Or you can say, we want to proceed to writing the report. Writing the report does not commit this body to saying, we're recommending
Right,
designation.
okay.
And it allows us 70 days to discuss this,
Right. So in the spirit of having gone through it and Stuart's idea of the straw poll, I'd be curious to hear what everybody thinks. I mean, my sense is that it should proceed, and criteria 9 should be one of the foci of the report.
Okay. So do you want to go down again? And
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Stuart?
What are we doing?
We're, right now we're, here, where is it? It's not consensus, but the ones that criteria 5 and 9 are the ones that have the most votes to move forward on. And would you agree with moving forward with either both of them, one of them,
With a report.
for the report? Yes.
I would with 9. I'm not so sure about 5.
Okay, so for 9.
So can I make a motion that we move forward with the report?
Well, I think we're just finishing
With
the
the-
straw poll first.
Okay.
Before,
I would say 5 and 9 as well.
okay,
I'm in agreement.
for both.
Yeah, I would love more information on 5, but it could conform to 5.
I mean, right now, we're not committing to both
And-
at the end. We're just
Okay.
gathering information for 5 and 9.
And by the way, Charles' point about the roads, I really feel very strongly about. I forgot that we had been shown the the block plan, and it really hadn't occurred to me that that is really concrete evidence of this being very intentional. And so I really think it does click into 5 in a strong manner now.
All right, and I would agree with 5 and 9.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? I have enough history with the commission to remember a church which we nominated very strongly, which I think was a unique example architecturally, and it went to the city council, and the owner made argument of economic hardship, and the city council did not recommend it for designation. So keep in mind, all of you, that we're simply making a recommendation, and that in terms of landmarking the building, that the criteria that we're moving forward with are pretty weak.
Right.
I personally don't think it's weak. I don't think that's consensus necessarily.
Well, it's unrelated to the building. But ultimately, it's unrelated to the building, but ultimately, the decision is going to be to landmark the building, because we can't landmark a piece of property. And I'm just wondering whether, when this goes to the city council, if there's an economic argument that's made that the city council will, throw away the hours we've all sat here deliberating this.
Well, we can only try. It's up to them.
Yep.
Right. So, Josh, were you prepared to make a motion, or?
I am.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with landmarking
With the report.
with the report to landmark Lincolnwood Elementary School.
And do you want to list?
Using
criteria?
criteria 9 and 5.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? All right. Do you want to do a roll call vote for this?
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Dean?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen? Nay. Chair Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner Elman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rizzolo?
Aye.
Commissioner Bose Carlson?
Aye.
All right. So 8-1, it moves forward.
7-1.
Or 7-1, sorry. So that sets the deadline for, 70 days from today, right? To finalize the report, and then then there's a resolution too that's drafted.
Correct.
All right. So with that, we are completed for the landmark nomination for Lincolnwood. And at the request of the applicant for the case on Judson, I'm moving that up before we discuss Willard. So next we will move to 26 Pres 003 at 1122 Judson Avenue.
I'll just say for the record that.
Oh, and for the record, Commissioner Dreller is joining us, and Commissioner Ailman is recusing himself.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Holtz. I am a principal at Studio Tallow Architects. Chairman Klein and commissioners, and I'm pleased to be here before you. I also have with me the property owner, Ellen Gartland, so she can field any questions if those arise. You've had a chance to look through this. Kate, could we scroll just through the first few to see the photos? Just to orient folks to the house. This is a Tudor revival designed by Ernest Mayo. And let's go then, if we could, Kate, to SD 1.13. Because I think that's the easiest way to look at the existing and proposed. Okay, yeah, perfect. The proposed project has three primary components. The first is a very small infill addition at the corner of the house. You can see on the left side under the covered porch. The second major piece is a significant interior renovation of the whole back of the house on the first and second floors, but the first floor is largely covered by the proposed wraparound porch. But on the second floor, we have, one window change, but otherwise are maintaining the design of that addition that was not original to the house, but has been there for a long time. And then finally, the third part is a wraparound porch that you see here on the southwest corner of the house. So I'll just go through very, very briefly each of those. The infill addition completes the corner of the house where there's a second floor addition that's sort of perched above it. And at that location, we're really just gaining more interior space, but respecting the materiality, the fenestration, the trim details, the relationship of scale and solid and void. So we're just infilling that, and you can see two new windows that face south, and the exterior material would be stucco to match what's there, trim to match what's there, et cetera, double hung windows to match what's there. The second floor renovation maintains all of the existing openings. There's one location at the center of the west facade that you can see at a small scale on the screen, where we're adding a new bathroom. There you go, that window. So it will convert to a higher awning window. And our proposal is to maintain the trim of the original size of the double hung that's there now, insert the new window at the top, and then infill the lower portion with sort of decorative wood trim that recalls some of the decorative trim that's on the front gable on the east side of the house. And so there, because that's also sort of more of an alteration, we're really working to maintain as much of the original structure that's there, original meaning in today's structure that's there. And again, sort of respecting the integrity of the detailing and character that exists throughout the house. And then finally, the third component, which is the most significant in terms of volume and visually, is a wraparound porch that incorporates a covered entry on the north end, a screened-in porch off of the west primarily, and then a covered porch on the side. And there, the proposal is to really borrow from the front porch. So in terms of the materials of Lannon stone at the foundation and at piers, and trim columns with trim, especially there's sort of an arched trim that we would see in the front elevation, which is a few slides back on the east, right there. So you can see there's a very gentle arch between columns on the porch. You can also see up in the gable on the upper level some of the decorative wood trim that's proposed for the back. but the same railing, detailing, the same color scheme. So really the same roof, essentially sort of slope material, so a standing seam metal roof. And then moving around the corner to the south side, and this might be a good place to see it again in the axon, that in order to let light into the kitchen on the south, the standing seam metal roof transitions to an open cedar pergola structure that lets in light but maintains the slope of the roof and the detailing at the edge, so that the gutter, the sort of eave detail at the other edges of the screen porch would continue, so that is not invisible, but sort of very, we're trying for a very comfortable transition from one roof type to the next. So I outlined the various criteria. I think on balance we're meeting most, if not all. We love working on old houses. We do a lot of work on old houses. I was actually struck, Kate, your reports are always outstanding, but I read with interest Mayo and Mayo's architectural philosophy, which I thought which I'll just read for everyone's benefit. But in every home we build, we endeavor to truly represent the owner's ideas and tastes to make them practical and as beautiful as we may in whatever style they prefer. We endeavor to do that too. But I think here we're interested in meeting the challenges of modern living, the interests of modern living, the needs of a family of four in today's world with, a design that respects this great house and draws inspiration from the detailing, character, materials, et cetera, that are there. So I will leave it with that and be happy to address any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? The application.
Can we see the southwest axon? Like, I'm curious about how the porch terminates on that side. Yeah.
That's all she's looking at too. We don't have an axonometric view from that angle. It would, and I'm not sure our east elevation goes back that far. No, because it's the bay. So we don't have an axonometric view from what would be the southeast in this set of drawings.
I'm curious. Did you guys consider sort of a hip end to that, or like why? Like since we can't see it, I'm just imagining how it might look from the street to have this sort of new, roof line going out maybe 3 feet, 5 feet. How far does it extend?
The depth of the porch there is about 5 feet.
Okay.
I would say 5 or 6 feet. I don't know.
And straight on, would you see it past the bay from the street?
You wouldn't see much of it. I mean, I don't, because of the house is close to the next adjacent house on the lot. I don't know how much you would see. I think one of the reasons, because you can see obviously that the western portion of the porch roof has the hip. Because the structure will be open on the pergola, I think when you start to introduce the hip, it kind of makes it.
I didn't think about the pergola.
Fussier,
there.
is how I guess how I would put it. And so for the design, maintaining the slope of the adjacent standing seam was the, and the simplicity of at that point what would just be a shed roof form.
And the intention for the pergola is to provide lighting for those two windows in the kitchen.
In the
right?
kitchen in general, because this is the second floor plan, but the kitchen is surrounded by the porch. So even on the west, where the screen porch will be, there are skylights in that roof to transfer light through to the kitchen, and then the open pergola on the south.
Can we see the axon again, please?
So the answer to the original question is at the end of that is open triangular framing.
Correct.
Does it have the same pointed arch under the beam on that end?
Yes, it would, so that detail continues around the entire porch. So you can see there, and that would return to along the south side, on the east side of that.
Okay.
Of that structure, yes.
Do you still need to see the axon, or, okay. And those skylights on the porch roof, are they mounted flush with the roof? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Is there a reason you did pergola and then a roof with skylights and not like one or the other throughout?
Well, because of the screen porch, we need roof there. And
Oh, I see, screen,
yeah, so it started as a metal roof for the entire structure, and then we, because of the interest in the daylight into the kitchen, opened that southern section up as a more open pergola.
So in those.
And one thing I would say, it's a little harder to see. You can see it a little in this view. You can see it in the axon. There's a decorative frieze that separates the first floor and the second floor, and you can see it there, and it continues a little bit there to the point where the second floor addition started. So that stays. So we're maintaining this that aspect of the existing trim, and you would see that from the underside of a porch if it were roofed with a solid roof, but it's something we're able to keep and making a point of maintaining.
Yeah. Could you go to the southwest axonometric? And can you blow up the end of it? Yeah, can you blow it up a little more? Oh, that's great. Okay. I kind of understand the economics of wanting to keep the trim around the bathroom window, but it's really curious, and the treatment there makes it so important and prominent. And it's curious that the decorative panel has the decorative cutouts vertical, whereas on the front of the house they're horizontal. I know it's a little bit of extra money, but if you look at the side elevation where the window heights vary slightly, there's always a central vertical board that goes up to the underside of the sill, and I think you could just do that and still, have it work nicely and sort of forget about that decorative panel.
So keep the decorative panel, but
yeah,
include a vertical
over a little
element.
Bit? Yeah, instead of keeping the sill, you have to do a new sill under the bathroom window anyway, but you just have a central board that would run up all the way to it.
So instead of keeping the trim from the original opening,
she's got two sills.
Right.
The original one and then the trim around the opening. I'm just suggesting spending a little bit more money to integrate that by redoing the trim and then just doing a single vertical board to the underside of the sill, which is the detail that happens at every window. Other than that, I mean, that's really picky, and I apologize, but it's a lovely job.
That's
It's a
okay,
very nice job.
And in fact, just for clarity, can we go, Cade, to the north elevation for just a minute? The existing or proposed, it doesn't
Just
matter.
driving okay, the buzz.
There's a window on the north with a right there, a higher sill. So Stuart, you're proposing basically that, an
Yes.
approach like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure everyone,
Probably by the time a shop makes up those decorative panels for you, it'll be a wash to do the simpler thing. But it's the plans are very nice, and I think the deference to the shape of the edge of the porch, relating it to the front of the house, I think works very well. So it's a very sympathetic addition.
thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, we can enter into deliberation. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Does anyone have comments on the proposed addition? No? Any other comments?
I think it's a nice solution and compatible with the existing structure.
So now, to what Commissioner Cohen was presenting, do you all understand what he was asking for?
I just want to clarify one thing on that, which is that you mean also patch the stucco in between the outer boards and the new inner board. Okay.
Well, you'd have stucco instead of decorative trim
Right. Okay.
panels.
In this case, which isn't always the case, you've got the timbering to make it not an obvious patch.
Yeah.
Right. So you would patch the stucco, you would keep continuing the timber, but then that frame would not be there. So you wouldn't see that there was an opening there. Any other comments on? Do you have any comments? No? Okay. So, seeing no comments, then do you want to make a motion with your suggested alteration?
Sure.
Hang on, Stuart.
Yes.
Stuart, just pause for just a sec. Do we know if we do this contingent on that change that the applicant is okay with that? Do we want to ask them before Stuart makes his motion?
I don't care. It's just a suggestion,
Okay, a recommendation.
a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness to 26 Pres 0003, 1122 Judson Avenue, to construct a single-story addition and wraparound porch at the home's rear volume, applicable standards, alteration 1 through 10, and construction 1 through 8, and 10 through 15.
Do you want to give your recommendation?
With the recommendation that the smaller bathroom window be trimmed out to look like all the rest of the windows in the house.
Okay. Is there a second? All right.
I second it.
Yes. So all in favor of the?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Can I file this for- So now we will move on to 26 Pres or no, sorry, for the Francis Willard Elementary School landmark nomination. Do you want to do one first or the other? Does it matter? Oh, sure. Is anyone here for public comment for the nomination? Yes, Mr. Weber.
Hello, everyone. Thomas Weber again, nominator for Willard Elementary. First, I just want to say thank you all for your dedication to the city and preserving our historic buildings. It's really been informative for me to go through this process, and it's nice to know that we have so many people who care about our city here. I just wanted to briefly address one of the public comments we heard earlier about kind of Willard's history and the school's history. So to me, landmarking is about preserving buildings of architectural and civic significance. It's not about erasing the past or simplifying history, but it's about protecting physical structures so that future generations can understand the full and complex story of our community. As you all discussed at the last meeting, Willard meets multiple criteria. Evanston's racial history is complex and deserves continued study and public discussion. That work is ongoing through organizations like the Shorefront Legacy Center and through the city's reparation efforts. Landmarking Willard does not hinder that work. In fact, preserving historic structures actually creates more opportunities for education, interpretation, and honest engagement with the past. I also want to note that landmark designation does not impose a financial burden on the school district. Landmark status can actually make historic tax credits available to any future developers, which could help them reduce redevelopment costs rather than increase them. Importantly, District 65 has not opposed this nomination, reflecting a shared understanding that landmarking protects the building without constraining the district's educational mission. Protecting a 1920s school building is not an endorsement of the social conditions of the 1920s. Just as Evanston landmarks churches, civic buildings, and homes built during periods of exclusion, we do so to preserve the architecture and to ensure the full history, including difficult chapters, can be told. This commission's role is to evaluate structures against the criteria set forth in the municipal code. The record demonstrates that Willard satisfies those criteria, and nothing in the record undermines that eligibility. I respectfully ask that the commission move forward with recommending landmark designation for Willard, consistent with the criteria and the unanimous initial vote. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Hi, Malia Gertzma. I'm going to speak again on Willard. I didn't script this out, and I'm going to get academic on this because speaking from the heart doesn't seem to have really connected. So I have studied urban planning at Brown University, the MIT School of Urban Planning, and the Harvard Graduate School of Design. I have a law degree from Harvard Law School, and I have studied civil rights laws, and I have studied the history of segregation and zoning with respect to civil rights laws. To sit in a room and discuss the character of an area that was established during the pivotal decades of Evanston segregation and to only acknowledge the physical beauty of it and the large houses and the beautiful preserved land is not doing the history or the character of this community justice. The people who would say, my home was moved, are not here in this room to say, that building is not a celebration for me. It does not reflect my culture. The reality of our town is that Ackerman Park was built to prevent multifamily housing being built on the same site. The reality of the Perkins Woods site was that it was originally owned by Walter Mitchell, who was part of the Mitchell Brothers Realty Company that was involved in displacing these people from North Evanston. The reality of North Evanston is that there were upwards of 20 Black households living in parts of North Evanston who were systematically removed. They were removed by the buildings of the school. They were removed by the real estate practices that built up the communities around those schools. And the same actors who were making these decisions about how we developed our land into positive schools were making similar decisions to move people out of those neighborhoods. So to sit here and to say we are doing that history justice by saying criterias 5 and 9, which are uniquely about urban planning, are the basis for justifying protecting these buildings, to me is an affront to urban planning as a practice. Current urban planning recognizes that these were wrongs. There are in-depth histories that say how the strategies mapped out. It was putting assets in place, assets for some people in place, intentionally located in ways to prevent other people from enjoying them. And to hear us talk about categories 5 and 9, which are not architectural. All of you with architectural training have sat up here and recognized that the architectural merits of these buildings do not merit protection. And yet you are saying that character does, the neighborhoods do. Who benefited from those? Who lived in those neighborhoods? Who were those neighborhoods built for?
It's time, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're conflating two different things. So we just voted on criteria 5 and 9 were for Lincolnwood, and we have a drafted resolution and report that speak to the architectural significance of Willard. So I think moving forward.
I was addressing the prior comment that basically said we're doing the history that's justice.
Thank you. So now for the commission, do you want to provide any comments on the report that was drafted? Are there any, yes.
I would just say she just left, but I didn't have enough time to review all the comments that were submitted. I know she had redlined some things, the commenter. I think there are some points, probably valuable points, that we should include more about the context of those times when we're drafting these documents. I'm not sure if I know how, like I said, I didn't have a chance to go over those comments since they came in so late today. But we should just, point taken, I think we should try to include some of that information when we're writing these reports, make it more robust in that way.
And also, I want to acknowledge that, yes, we received that letter. We also received a letter, and it was printed out and shared with all of the commission from Victor Filippini for Lincolnwood. Sorry, I forgot to provide that earlier. But I think the purpose of this report is that we're providing to City Council what the Preservation Commission believe, the reasons for why the Willard School is worthy of being a landmark. And yes, we need to acknowledge the difficult chapters in the history of Evanston, but I think we need to do that in context of the criteria that we have listed for landmark designation. And I don't think that we can write we need to acknowledge it, but I don't think we need to go into in-depth histories of that exclusion or racial desegregation. Did anyone else? Do you want?
I guess the thing for me that was difficult with some of the public comment for me to look at was the lack of direct associations with the property that's in question right now. That there are certainly examples, and the report does acknowledge displacement of individuals on the Haven site and other school sites, and and that history, but those are not the schools that are being nominated. Those are not the schools that are being landmarked. And I looked pretty significantly when writing the report at, are there direct associations? Are there physical components of the school or property that tell this story in some way? And I don't see the evidence for that when it relates to Willard. There are certainly examples across the city that history is really well illustrated and embedded in those physical, aspects of those properties.
I mean, if these buildings are elements that remain in the community that somehow give shape to the community, the question that I would have to do with the ability of architectural forms to communicate things, and I would ask whether the history of displacement that created that school is in any way identifiable or legible in the architectural forms of the building. I mean, you could make the same argument about the architectural quality of antebellum mansions. And I think it's a kind of dilemma. Obviously, there are some things that can never overcome how they were created or what they were created in service of. I've always wanted to say this. I get to say this because I'm Jewish. But I think one of the great architectural spaces created in the 20th century was the Cathedral of Ice that Albert Speer did for the Nuremberg rallies. And for those of you that don't know it, it was a big stadium, and around the entire perimeter at the top of the stadium, he set up Klieg lights that were aimed to converge a half a mile in the sky, so that the experience of that space at night was that you were in a cathedral-like space that was a half mile high. And I think that that's one of the extraordinary things, one of the extraordinary buildings, one of the extraordinary architectural creations of the 20th century. And unfortunately, because it was a Nazi rally, there's no way to detach it from that meaning and what it was. And the question I would have is, if we're designating the school as an architectural landmark, is that objectionable history that went into its creation in any way legible, and then how should it bear upon our decision to landmark or not landmark that building? Thank you.
That's very well said. That's a very good point. I think that the building will stand for a lot longer than the information about the history will be acknowledged and recognized, which is I think is the loss. I don't think that you can reverse history. You can't go back. But in a way, first of all, it says that our business is preservation. It doesn't specifically say anything. It says preservation. It doesn't say buildings or schools or whatever. I don't know if as I mentioned just before, I don't know if we have the power to mandate it, but if there was some way to acknowledge the past at the same time that you're allowing for the present and the future, I think that would be a good thing. I think that a plaque inside the building that would explain some of this history, and then let's go on. Let's go forward. But we won't go forward minus the knowledge, right, of what came before, what happened in that space, and by that, we will be informed. We'll learn, and the students will know. So I think that we can't undo it, but we can make sure that along with the structures, the history is preserved and the culture.
I think that's a great suggestion. Is there any way that we as a commission can mandate that, in a sense, that that with the designation there, the city does plaques that you can buy if you have a landmark structure, and it simply says this is a designated landmark building. And I'm wondering if there's any way that we can ask or even demand that somewhere on this landmark structure there is a narrative that explains what Charles was suggesting.
The only thing I would want to include is that there is no evidence that I've seen that the construction of the school displaced houses or people of color that were on that land. Everything that I have seen, that land was vacant prior to its construction.
Or the playground or the park.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The only portions that were occupied are the northernmost portions that contain houses today as well, south of Isabella. There are certainly sites across the city that communicate this history really well, and I think would be really deserving of what we're talking about. The other thing that I think is important to note is that, and I don't remember when this occurred exactly, 2019 perhaps, is that we are guided by policy that's set by the City Council. The City Council has adopted a resolution in 2019, 2020 that was an agreement between them and Shorefront and other communities and Black members of this community that it essentially says that their history is best recognized not through the formal landmarking program, and that's why they created the Heritage African American Heritage Sites program. That's how they prefer that history be physically celebrated or recognized. So to me, the best way to honor that policy direction that we are guided by would be to engage with Shorefront. That same resolution says that this commission, the city's planning department, and Shorefront are to work in a cooperative manner to advance recognition of these histories and celebration of these histories and recognition of uncomfortable histories. It would be to really work with them to try to determine what sites are best suited for this. How can we support efforts to acknowledge and recognize the locations that tell those stories and communicate them best? And maybe they'll agree that this is one. I don't want to say that it isn't. I just haven't seen the evidence that it has as direct associations as, for example, Haven, which is also a landmark, or Kingsley School, which is not a landmark, but has pretty direct associations between displacement and its construction.
Can I? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I read something and I was just looking back. The commenter had said something about the Crandon School was, I guess, and again, I don't know where this information came from, or it seems like there was some information about the Crandon School built around the same time, or was there, and then Willard was built, and there were a lot of Black students at Crandon who were subsequently transferred. So it was like indirectly related to the Willard building somehow. So I'm not sure. I like your idea of working with Shorefront or other groups, or, residents or whoever. It sounds like there's some information that we might not have that other people have. That would be nice to
That is
figure out.
the present day location of Independence Park. It is that's held in, by the city. I think if there are opportunities to install something, if that history is important,
Okay.
there
Yeah,
are
I
certainly
agree.
locations that, there are, it's a really complex history, right? And there are many different forces on the private side and the public side working in tandem essentially in that period of time that result in the significant segregation of an entire community into what is today the Fifth Ward essentially, and that those housing practices are then what then leads to a segregated school system, is that you're not able to get mortgages or loans to live outside of those areas, and so there aren't people of color in those other attendance boundaries or in one location. That is then coupled with our efforts to desegregate, which it's an ongoing and evolving history as well, I guess is what I'm saying.
Can I just, so landmark nominations are not meant to be like a definitive history of this place. We're not writing like a book about this building. We're trying to go through the criteria that the ordinance has and figure out, based on what we know about it right now, which criteria it meets. Last time we met, I think it was unanimous that it was, the one about the architecture, the exemplification of architectural style, right? Something like that, one of those. Landmark nominations can always be amended and added to. We did that, 2 years ago, and it was relatively straightforward.
Right.
Yeah. So, as we get more information, we can add that. Certainly, this history that we're talking about tonight is extremely important. It should be said out loud. It definitely, once we have an actual something, some way to say it that is relevant to Willard, it should be put into the landmark nomination. But right now, we know that it meets at least one of these criteria.
I think we were all unanimous on the architect himself.
On the architectural
also.
one, yeah.
If we could just drill down into the criteria where you've put us right now. So the third criteria that we were considering, which was not unanimous, was about its place in the neighborhood, the development of the neighborhood. And I'm still lukewarm on that. I do want to say, though, that if that is in the designation report, that we think that that's an important component of the neighborhood, then absolutely the points that have been raised by the public here today should be part of that report. Mm-hmm. And if there is a plaque that describes all the criteria in great detail, then it would be part of that as well. But outside of that, if that's not a part of our designation, and there is no concrete evidence right now that there was that the development of this school and its property that it sits on were part of this dark history, then I don't see a place for that being put into the report.
I think, yes, you're right. There should be definite acknowledgement of what happened in the neighborhood. I think this report is talking about the specific parcel that includes the park, the playground, and the school. And as far as we can tell, with the research that has been done up to this time, that specific site has not been a site of displacement so yes, there is an acknowledgement that the overall neighborhood, especially directly right across the street, there was displacement and people forced to move their homes, but that doesn't pertain to the specific parcel, which is what the landmark designation is for.
We could put in the landmark nomination a statement that says
Right.
that we recognize that this is a history, that this is something that happened, that currently, as of the writing of this landmark nomination, we don't have any evidence. I mean, could we even say, Cade, that, this additional, if additional information comes to light, we could add it, or we just leave that part? That's not really something that usually goes in.
I mean, to be clear, with the city council vote in 2021, Shorefront indicated that they weren't interested in having the landmark process be part of this. So I'd want to ask them
Right.
whether they'd want that to be included on any level.
Yeah, I mean, we could include them, but we're in the middle of this process, right? So we have some ordinance required things we have to do, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so there's always, and I think the report does touch on everything that you just talked about too, even saying that the developmental history of this school and the expansion of the school district generally. There were like 8 schools built during this time period. It coincides with this other history that they are related, but that we don't have the evidence to say that it would meet one of these other criteria based on that history and its ability to tell that story. Let's assume that it's designated. The next step would be writing like the statement of significance for it that would exist. That's also something that, the report would accompany that, but there could be a clear statement in that. That's also something that can, as Sarah mentioned, can always be amended, and amended by this body exclusively. You have the power to do that. It's not something that you have to ask permission to do. That, you were entrusted with being able to amend those statements as new history becomes available, and this commission has done that before.
Right, this isn't the end. Like we've already agreed that it meets a certain set of criteria, and if in the future we have concrete evidence that comes up, we can always amend the statement of significance and the designation at that time.
With regard to Willard, what I just said, I think it's important. It's important because it was very aggressively raised by the community. But if the research has been done and proves that that's not the case, then I don't think that it would be necessary to include it in any documentation that comes from the commission. However, I think there are other cases where it would be substantiated, be proven that there was some kind of dark component that would warrant that. I guess generally what I'm saying is that in cases where there is proven negative activities, that they be acknowledged. And because, as I said before, I have not heard any strict definition of preservation. We have a bunch of criteria that apply to structures, and we reference culture and society, but we don't actually, and we make it a part of the deliberation. But I think, and I remember reading this actually now, Kate, your research, that we have done our due diligence, and I don't think we need to seriously pursue it after that work. On this case, on Willard, I think it's up to the rest of our community to acknowledge what happened across the street, what happened up the block. But and there will be cases, and there probably has been cases that have come before the commission where there's been some kind of negative impact on the minority community that went unacknowledged and will slide back into the recesses of history. But I think going forward, it would be my hope that when necessary, that we should help to acknowledge it and preserve it as a educational component of preservation.
Can I just make a note about documentation really quick? A lot of stuff happens without documentation. Just as a kind of, so the fact that there's no documentation doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just that we can't find it, at least with the current stuff we've got. So that's why I think just maybe the way forward is to be very clear, like even more clear than we are in the report. It's like very explicit that this is the kind of research we've done. We didn't find any documentation about this particular site along the lines of what Charles was saying. But, stuff changes. People find a box in their attic. I mean, it happens. That sounds crazy, but it happens a lot. And so, maybe we just indicate our openness in the landmark nomination to more information coming to us, something like that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So At this point, to amend the report, do we need to make a motion to do that, or?
I don't think necessarily for what we just
Okay.
discussed. I think the resolution allows me to use this testimony to amend it
Okay.
in
All right.
that way.
I want to propose one other option, which is that we restrict the criteria to the architecture and the architect on Willard School. I know other folks felt differently about that even before we kind of learned some of this potential history in the neighborhood. For me, it's too much of a gray area. I'd rather go in strong with what we think are this property's rock solid assets, and steer clear of the development of the neighborhood. I wouldn't object to still acknowledging that we understand the history of this neighborhood within that, but I think we should keep the its integration into the neighborhood or the development of the neighborhood out of the report.
So would that be removing criterion 9 from the report?
Yes, for me.
So then that brings up further down in the report, under critical features, there are, it talks about the spatial quality of the site. And if we remove criterion 9, how do we then have that listed as a criteria?
Well,
like a critical feature of this site?
I would contend, well, again, this is my take on it. I don't find that the spatial relationships of this school are significant or unique enough to any other school. And so I would be happy to drop that.
Okay.
There are the portions, just in that there are relationships and spatial relationships between the school and its grounds that relate to it communicating its history as a school and being developed in a specific period of time where, as Stuart mentioned, those schools prior did not have those types of amenities. So I think there is a way that you can tie those spatial relationships to the architectural characteristics and the design of the building itself. And I actually think that that's pretty important to maintaining its integrity in the future, is maintaining those spatial relationships.
That would stay under criteria 3. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I would actually say I like John's suggestion with Cade's variation quite a bit. I mean, the reality is that it says every under 2-8-4, right? Every nominated landmark or district must meet one or more of the following. So it only has to meet one. We know it meets 2. We don't, just as a reminder, we don't have to be comprehensive in this thing. That's not, the ordinance is not telling us that we must write everything that's important about this building. We don't have to check all the boxes.
And then, John, just based on my understanding of what you're saying, is that one of the reasons that it does not meet criterion 9, and I think you just said it, you were talking about the spatial associations, is that those are not necessarily, that they're important as part of its integrity and communicating its architectural significance, but those spatial relationships are not inherently unique to schools in Evanston, or that its location within a neighborhood, that there are many schools in Evanston that are.
Well, I just learned tonight from Commissioner Cohen about the history of open space and Perkins' involvement in that. So I do understand it as an important theory of school design that occurred in that era, and yet there's thousands or tens of thousands of them have been built since then in that way. So for that reason, I still don't want to have that component in there. But I'm fine with what you suggested with incorporating it into
Sure.
item 3.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is that if we feel uncomfortable about justifying one of these criteria, if we just feel like maybe we don't have enough, that it meets some of the other criteria that are not the architectural ones, then we're not obligated to include that stuff. We just aren't. I mean, I'm just speaking realistically. I mean, I'm a historian. If you'd like me to list out all of my qualifications the way that it's been done before, I think you'll find that they sound pretty as impressive as what we've already heard. But so, you know, I'm saying to you, I'm reassuring you all that this does not have to be, you know, the great American history book.
Okay, so, John, would you like to make a motion to remove criterion 9 from the report?
Yes, this requires a motion?
Yeah.
Sure. Make it official here. Can I just say the Willard School?
Sure.
Okay. So I move regarding the landmark designation for the Willard School that we remove criteria 9 from the report and include the open space and its relationship to playgrounds and open space as related to the building itself into criteria 3.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and can we do a roll call vote? Yeah.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? No. Commissioner Zine?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Aye.
Chair Klein?
No.
Commissioner Dreller?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rizzolo?
Aye.
Commissioner Bose Carlson?
Aye.
7-2, it passes.
All right, any other comments on the report?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that what we were just talking about earlier is going to stay, right? That you know, we're going to make sure that as part of this report, we're going to you know, indicate that we're open to more information. Whenever there's more information, bring it and we'll expand it, because maybe when we have more information, we can add 9.
And will that open invitation specifically relate to the history of the development of the neighborhood and the segregation and the taking of lands?
Yeah, I mean, when there's more documentation, if we know more about this, then we can
Okay.
make sure that, I mean, it doesn't have to be a really long statement, right? We've just something that says that we recognize that this happened in Northwest Evanston, and that, you know, that we would like to make sure that, you know, it can be amended at some point.
Okay.
Is it right? Isn't that what we talked about a few minutes ago? So the fact that we just voted the way we just voted doesn't actually negate that other thing. We're still going to include it. Okay.
So yeah, so now that we've done that, are we prepared to vote on this final report? And if so, can someone make a motion to approve the report that goes to City Council?
I thought this was going to be edited based on what we just,
You have to approve it as amended with the testimony that you've provided, that it will be amended as such. Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
You're approving the report with the understanding that it will be amended based on the testimony that you've provided.
So we don't see the amended report again. This is it.
Correct.
Because this is the 70th day.
Right. So we're obligated to.
Yeah. So
Everyone-
we have to vote on sending the report to City Council, and it will be amended to reflect what we discussed tonight and voted on. So is there a motion then to?
I move that we approve the report with the edits and to be amended per our discussion tonight for Resolution 25-Pres-0120, landmark nomination for Francis Willard Elementary School at 2700 Hurd Avenue.
All right, is there a second?
I second it.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the resolution passes. Do we need to have a vote for the report or
Adopting the resolution
adopting? Okay.
has the language, the whereas language where you're adopting the report as
Okay.
well. Yep.
So so then the resolution is then going to be sent to City Council. And for procedural question, will there be an opportunity for the Preservation Commission to present this to the City Council?
I hope so. I want to say yes, but it didn't happen last time. But yeah, I'm working my hardest, and I think we'll have that opportunity. And if not, you can always provide public comment individually before. But I think we'll have the opportunity to do so.
Okay. So with that, next we have approval of the meeting minutes. Receiving no edits to the meeting minutes, we'll consider them approved, and with no further business, we can adjourn the meeting.